Good morning, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Prasar Bharati. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Protests rock major Israeli cities, including outside Netanyahu's residence. Call on government to secure Gaza hostages' release. Protests also marked major cities across the world. US reaffirms support for humanitarian pauses in Gaza. Warns ceasefire would help Hamas to regroup.
It's our view that a ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th.
Pakistan stays alive in the race for the semi-final while England crashes out. Today, India takes on South Africa in a top-of-the-table clash in Kolkata's Eden Gardens. It's day 30 of the Israel-Hamas conflict. The action from both sides seems relentless, with protests gaining strength across Israeli major cities in support of the families of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Israelis, including families of October 7 victims, rallied in Tel Aviv on Saturday. Toys were displayed in the protest to symbolize the children who were being taken as hostages by Hamas militants, while hundreds waved Israeli flags and pictures of the missing. Israel says Hamas has taken over 240 hostages so far. Protests also took place outside the residence of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, waving blue and white Israeli flags. A crowd in the hundreds pushed through police barriers around Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem. The protest, which coincided with a poll showing more than three-quarters of Israelis believe Netanyahu should resign, underlined the growing public fury at the political and security leaders. Protests were also held in major cities across the world to demand the Gaza ceasefire and release of hostages. In central London, thousands of protesters were gathered to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza amid ongoing conflict. It was the fourth consecutive week that the British capital was the venue for a large rally in support of Gazans since October 7. In Paris, thousands demonstrated to show solidarity for Gazans and to demand a ceasefire. Demonstrators held flags bearing slogans "Stop the Massacres" and "Ceasefire Now." Around 19,000 people took part in the protest. The demonstration was one of the first big gatherings to be legally allowed in Paris since Hamas attacked Israel. French authorities had banned previous gatherings in Paris due to concerns of public disorder, but there has been increasing public anger around the world over civilian deaths.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
And major cities around the United States also saw large protests calling for an immediate ceasefire. Thousands of demonstrators gathered in Washington, D.C. amid the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Crowds of protesters marched the streets, holding signs and waving flags demanding ceasefire in Gaza.
The Palestinian people have endured decades upon decades.
Protesters voicing support for residents of the Gaza Strip gathered at rallies in more than 24 cities across Canada. Thousands of protesters filled the streets of Toronto and Ottawa, calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Protesters also demanded Canada end its support for Israel's military action against Hamas. Canada's foreign minister reiterated a call for a humanitarian pause in the conflict in Gaza and said there is little time left to get Canadians and hostages out while delivering badly needed aid. The U.S. remains deeply committed to humanitarian efforts in the region, stepping up its frantic diplomacy. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met leaders from Lebanon, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt and Saudi in Amman as he pushed for humanitarian pauses in the fighting. The last meeting of the day was with Jordan King Abdullah II and Crown Prince Al Hussein, during which they discussed working towards facilitating the delivery of humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza. Earlier, Blinken attended an Arab foreign ministers roundtable meeting where he expressed deep commitment to working with partners in the region to help set the conditions necessary for durable and sustainable peace in the Middle East. This was Blinken's second trip to the region since Israel and Hamas went to war.
Israel has a right and indeed an obligation to defend itself and to try to take the steps necessary to ensure that what happened on October 7th never happens again. But equally, it is very important how Israel does this. And in particular, it's important to take every possible measure to protect civilians and to prevent harm to them, as well as to ensure that those who need assistance get it. And in our conversations with the Israeli government, including just yesterday, we have pointed to steps that they could and should take to minimize harm to civilians, to prevent civilian casualties. It's our view that a ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th.
Meanwhile, Antony Blinken will visit Turkey on Sunday, where he will remain until Monday afternoon. It's not yet clear who the U.S. Secretary of State will be meeting. Turkey on Saturday recalled its ambassador to Israel for consultations due to the humanitarian crisis and ongoing Israeli attacks in Gaza. Israel's envoys to Turkey left the country last month due to security reasons. Israel later said it had recalled its envoys to assess bilateral ties. Israeli Foreign Ministry called the decision to call ambassador back for consultations another step to side with terrorist organization Hamas. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has listed the top Hamas targets of the Israeli Defense Forces and vowed to find and eliminate them. Speaking at a news conference in Tel Aviv, Gallant said that Israel had delivered a hard blow to Hamas brigades and destroyed critical military infrastructure.
Hamas brigades are getting hard blows and we dismantle infrastructure after infrastructure. We can see here the areas in Gaza. In each square there are infrastructure. These are falling apart as a result of the determined action of the fighters of the army. I can tell you that 12 Hamas commanders were killed. We will get to everyone from the chain of command to the terrorist in the field. We will get to Yehya Sinwar and we will assassinate him. I say here to the people of Gaza, if you get there first, it will shorten the war.
Israeli warplanes pounded Hezbollah positions in Lebanon on Saturday, in the worst border clashes for 17 years now after terrorist group unleashed a series of rockets into northern Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces said its planes had struck Hezbollah targets in retaliation for their attack and combined the airstrikes with artillery and tank shelling. While diplomatic efforts intensify, DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh was at the Golan Heights on the Israel-Syria border. He gives us a ground report on the threat of a regional escalation of the Israel-Hamas conflict.
I'm right now standing at the Golan Heights. This is the border that you see behind me, is the border of Israel with Syria. So right now, the threat of a regional escalation looms large, though Syria has been, quite its military capabilities have been depleted by the constant conflict that is going on in Syria, or the civil war, which has been going on for more than 2 years. But Iran's proxies are still active, and that is what the international community is concerned about, that if Iran starts acting through its proxies out of Syria. The Hezbollah anyway is backed by Iran and also the Hamas. So it could spill over. There could be a regional escalation, and the world cannot afford a second war. Right now, the first war, Ukraine-Russia crisis anyway, has affected global supply chains, and another war would mean disaster for the world. And that is why you see hectic diplomacy. Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, was in Tel Aviv. He held long meetings with Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet, and later traveled to Jordan to see with two objectives. One, to see that it does not escalate beyond Hamas and Israel, and the second, to see how humanitarian aid can be increased into the Gaza Strip, because there's a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding there. Amritpal Singh for DD India at the Golan Heights.
Well, GD India correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us from West Bank. Amrit, what's this latest situation right now in terms of the military campaign? The civilian casualties seem to be going up despite the hectic diplomacy, despite calls from the US for a humanitarian pause. Is it having any effect?
Oh, the calls for humanitarian pause is having absolutely no effect. Benjamin Netanyahu told Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, that there is no question of a humanitarian pause. We are going ahead full steam. They have intensified the bombings. As I, earlier in my reports have been saying, they've encircled the Gaza city. In fact, they allowed a 3-hour period for the civilians to leave North Gaza, saying you can take the Gaza Highway to south, and then it is in your best interest and your interest of your loved ones that you move out soon, because we are going to launch the final offensive the crackdown on Gaza. So they have tanks there, they have infantry men there, they have troops there. Aerial bombarding is regularly going on. There are the allegations and counter allegations of ambulances being hit, hospitals being hit, etc. So the military campaign is intensified when it comes to the Gaza Strip. The IDF is also hitting back targets inside Lebanon, from where the Hezbollah is continuously firing missiles at the Israeli army and in Israel territory, and rockets as well. So they are retaliating on both fronts, the north and the south. So there is absolutely no let up, and the military campaign is intensifying by the day.
Amrit, you mentioned hostages right now. What's the latest on that front?
Well, on hostages, the thing is that there are mediations going on. Qatar, America, Israel, Hamas are all negotiating, though they are not openly saying it. These are mediations via Qatar. But what Hamas has done is that it has put conditions. It says, first, stop the bombing. Second, it's asking for a prisoner exchange in return of hostages. Third, it is asking for opening the siege and letting fuel in. Now, it remains to be seen how much is Israel amenable to that. Israel has made it clear, no pause in the military campaign. Prisoner swap, they are negotiating. They can look at prisoners, but they're saying that the Israeli military the strategy when it comes to release of hostages is that put the pressure on. Once they have considerable military pressure, they wouldn't have much options, so they will have to negotiate then on Israeli terms. So that's happening. The only good thing is that the humanitarian aid is going in, and those foreign nationals who are stuck in southern Gaza or have reached Rafah, they are being let out. Though in small numbers, 40 French nationals along with their families reached Egypt via the Rafah crossing. Some other nationalities have also reached, including some Americans, but there still remains a sizable number of foreigners inside the Gaza Strip. So efforts are on that, but I think the hostages bit will take a little bit of time.
All right, Amrit, thanks for joining in. Let's now take a look at other stories making news across the globe. Well, on Saturday, Myanmar radio and television broadcast the live streaming of the Myanmar Korea musical show for its Friday Night Live show to exchange the Myanmar Korea culture. And for Korean K-pop lovers, the program will be replayed on Sunday morning. The month-long annual Ferreira de Almeida festival opened on Saturday in Macau. Highlighting the area's rich cultural heritage, the event features a myriad of activities such as concerts, open-air cinema, exhibitions and much more, catching the attention of locals and tourists equally. A 35-year-old man drove a car through a barrier onto the grounds of Hamburg Airport on Saturday, prompting immediate closure and evacuation of the airport. The matter is still under investigation. Amid threats of deportation, Venezuelan migrants who trek through the dangerous Darien Gap to reach the US are getting some respite with the help of Catholic charities. The church is helping the migrants with their applications for work authorization and temporary protected status. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Survivors race against time in wake of the devastating earthquake in Nepal. Air quality continues to deteriorate in Delhi. Air quality in several areas remains in severe category. And defending champion England knocked out of Cricket World Cup after defeat to Australia in Ahmedabad. You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharatwaj. The victims of the disastrous earthquake that shook Nepal in the middle of the night were being treated in a hospital in Kalanga, which is close to the epicenter of the quake in the country's western region, while other survivors slept outside amid damaged buildings. Military helicopters have also been deployed to the quake-stricken areas to save the seriously injured. The helicopters have been flying between the disaster area and the airport, transporting the injured for further treatment. The death toll has reached 257 now, and officials fear the death toll could rise as fast responders had reached the hilly area near the epicenter and began searching for survivors. Meanwhile, Nepal Deputy Prime Minister Bahadur Khadka said the country has deployed its military forces to race against time to rescue all the injured.
First, we have to rescue all those injured people who are treated at local hospitals and clinics. Seriously injured people will be sent to other hospitals by 2 military helicopters, and 3 other small military helicopters will also participate in the rescue. In the initial stage, we will treat the injured in different hospitals in the region.
And Ukraine's armed forces said they hit marine and port infrastructure at a factory in the port city of Kerch in Russian-occupied Crimea on Saturday. Ukraine fired 15 cruise missiles on Russia's shipyard in the Crimean port, damaging a ship. 13 of the missiles were destroyed in the air, while 1 hit ship, the Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement when reporting on Ukraine strikes on Russian territory or infrastructure. Ukraine's top Air Force commander said the Russian Navy stationed there one of its most modern ships, a carrier of the Caliber cruise missile. Moscow has often attacked Ukraine in the course of the 20-month-long war with Caliber missiles. Kenyan President William Ruto said Kenya is determined to push forward its contributions to environmental protection and global sustainable development. He added Kenya and China share a complementary relationship in cooperation around green development. Ruto added, that we made a deliberate, intentional decision as a country to chart the way towards a much more sustainable future, both for ourselves and globally.
We have a complementary relationship. China spearheads technology around renewable energy. Kenya is a frontline state on advocating for climate action that enables us to unlock the huge potential that we have, especially in the African continent, on renewable energy. Whether you talk about solar, geothermal, wind, hydro, that is the space where Kenya is pushing.
Striking Hollywood Actors Union has received an offer from the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers on Saturday. The union said it is reviewing the offer and considering a response after AMPTP, which represents Netflix, Walt Disney and other media companies, has said that this was the last, best and final offer. Members of the SAG-AFTRA union, which represents actor and media professionals, have been on strike since July, which has cost California economy at least $6 billion. Let's now take a look at other stories making news today. The Chanakya Defence Dialogue 2023 concluded in Delhi with takeaways on security challenges in South Asia and Indo-Pacific. It was a two-day event steered by the Indian Army in collaboration with the Center for Land Warfare Studies. The dialogue unfolded crucial discussions on global and regional security issues with a distinctive emphasis on the South Asian and Indo-Pacific security dynamics. The air quality in several areas of Delhi remains in severe category on Sunday for the fourth consecutive day. As the air quality index stands at 478, a thick layer of toxic smog engulfed the city, resulting in poor visibility. According to doctors, for a health person, the recommended AQI should be less than 50. Bhutan King Jigme Khesa Namgyal Wangchuk took the Jeep Safari at the center range of the Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve in Assam. He also witnessed the flora and fauna of the park at the Kohora range on the second day of his visit to the state. Bhutan King is on an 8 days official visit to India. The central government has initiated retail sale of onion from the buffer at subsidized the price of 25 rupees per kilograms to ensure the availability and affordability of onion to domestic consumers. The prices of onions are rising due to delay in the arrival of Kharif crop. And time now for sport, where India will take on South Africa in the ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 at the Eden Gardens on Sunday. The men in blue have already qualified for the semi-final and will look to continue their momentum, whereas the Proteas will look to challenge the table toppers. DD India correspondent Narayan Singh reports.
Get ready for the El Clasico of cricket, as Sunday marks the clash of the titans in the ICC Cricket World Cup 2023. It's a face-off of epic proportions, with India and South Africa squaring off at the iconic Eden Gardens in Kolkata. India, the undisputed juggernauts of the tournament, have been on a relentless winning spree. They have conquered all 7 of their matches, becoming the first team to secure a spot in the semi-finals.
This match is a perfect example of El Clasico of cricket. If you take a look at the points table, it's similar to that of the Real Madrid and Barcelona featuring in Spanish La Liga. If you take a look, India is playing more or less like Barcelona. The way Barcelona dominated with their technical tiki-taka, the European football, in the same way, India is playing an exceptional technical cricket and dominating and thrashing their all opponents. If you take a look at South Africa, they are more or less like Real Madrid, thrashing their all opponents who are coming on their way.
South Africa is on a mission to not only topple the cricketing giants, but also cement their own passage to the semi-finals. With an impressive 6 wins out of the 7 matches, they're hot on India's heels. Sure, they stumbled against the Netherlands in a shocking upset, but they have come back stronger, hungrier and more determined than ever. In the history books, India and South Africa have crossed paths in 90 ODIs, with the Proteas emerging victorious in 50 encounters and India securing 37 wins. In the crucible of the ODI World Cup, they have clashed 5 times, with South Africa holding the edge with 3 wins to India's 2.
If you take a look, both the teams on paper, both are strong. If India has Kohli and Rohit, then in batting department, South Africa has Klaasen and Quinton de Kock. But yet, there is no room for complacency, both the teams, because this match is not only played for the top of the table battle, but it is also for the battle of supremacy in the world of cricket. With camera person Senthil Kumar, Narayan Singh, DD India, Kolkata.
And England crashed out of the Cricket World Cup after succumbing to a 6th loss as Australia beat them by 33 runs at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad on Saturday. Batting first, Australia scored 286 runs, to which England could only manage 253 in response, losing their 6th game in the tournament. David Malan and Ben Stokes struck half-centuries, while Moeen Ali contributed with 42 but couldn't save England from their 5th consecutive loss. Adam Zampa returned with superb bowling figures of 3 for 21, while Mitchell Starc and captain Pat Cummins too struck at crucial moments of the match for the 5-time champions. Earliest, Marnus Labuschagne scored 71, while valuable contributions from Cameron Green, Stephen Smith and Marcus Stoinis helped Australia reach 286 after England won the toss and have opted to bowl first. With this win, Australia are almost certain for a semi-final spot. All right, and that's all for this edition of DD India on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram as well. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Prasar Bharati from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.